The guy 20mi20f like has a girl best friend and IDK how to feel about it. Backstory. So, I20f have knows this guy 20m since 2021. Everything was online Twitter or X and most importantly everything was super platonic. He'd reply to my tweets or DM me about a tweet I made and it was honestly chill, like he never insinuated something more, and like I said it was online. Eventually, he asked for my IG and we ended up continuing to chat on there. Again, he'd always reply to my stories tbh, it was more of his effort to maintain the friendship, whereas I DM once every full moon. I was into another guy anyways and he'd tell me stories about girls he'd have flings with. He'd also always wish me a happy b-day, text me for Christmas and New Year's, and I appreciated it so I would return the gesture. That being said, last year we kind of lost touch for no reason. I think life just has its course and online friendships at one point die out. He'd still text me from time to time to check out what's new with my life, what I'm studying, etc., but that's it. The story. This year, things took a turn however. So he'd still reply to my stories sometimes, right? And then he started texting me more during the European Championship and we'd chat casually. He was on vacation visiting multiple Eastern European countries and he'd tell me about it. I'm Eastern European. At one point he tells me we should hang out when I come back home, and to that I say okay. It did make me curious since we had never seen each other in real life in a planned setting. We ran into each other at my job, in a supermarket, last year, but it was a very brief conversation cause I was on the shift. Few days go by and he texts me again, hey, this is my last day here, tomorrow I'm coming home, when can we see each other next week? We fix a date and spoiler alert, we saw each other the following week. How can I explain this? I've never had such a good time with a guy, like platonically. It was so refreshing to just be around a guy that acts normal around you and doesn't insinuate stuff or is ambiguous, etc. I had honestly a great time with him and enjoyed his company. We went for lunch at a nice Italian restaurant and he told me he'd pay. I ignored it at first. In my head I was thinking, no way. I'm Eastern European girly. If you pay for my meal it means it's a date, or at least you're showing off your intentions. Plus, we live in a Western European country where going Dutch is the norm in all settings, and with friends I go Dutch, so I thought that if he paid for my meal it would kind of change the ambiance, but I didn't know if he thought the same or if he naturally does this. You'll see he is very generous. Anyways, we sit down and eat. At the end he did pay after I insisted we could split it in half. Of course I felt flattered he did and I thanked him, and he hit me with a, I can make this money back easily. In my head I was like, okay Andrew Tate LMAO. Anyways, following that meeting or date IDEC, what to call it, we continued chatting a lot and I'd noticed the vibe changing. We'd both sometimes say ambiguous flirtatious stuff but not pushing it. BC, well, at least for my part, one didn't want things to go too fast. To me, he seemed perfect. Until he wasn't. One evening we talk and at one point he doesn't reply, so I go to bed. I wake up the following morning with texts from him and they said that basically his girl best friend, Polish girl, it's all I know, went out with her friends last night and stayed until late out, and she called him to go pick her and her friends up and accompany them back home. Immediately I was skeptical, like, why does she call you? But I bit on my tongue because we're just friends who casually flirt, and anyways we just re-established like a good contact. Showing my crazy was not for just yet. Eventually, during later conversations more little snippets come out, like I learned that when they go out in group settings like other guys and girls involved, he was still the one to bring her and her friends back home. Or like, one time he texted me saying he's at her house because it was the birthday of IDK, who and the girl's mother invited him, and he went and helped her parents with their luggage. They had just arrived from holidays and hung out with her cousins and played ball with her little brother. I was like, wow, you're literally a part of the family, haha, meanwhile wanting to peel my skin off. To me, it looks like the perfect movie setting and I hate it. Then, little snippets of older conversations pop back in my head, like how he once told me he had a fling with a cousin of this girl, but she didn't speak anything besides Polish and she lived in Poland, so that kind of stopped them from pursuing anything. And I was like, again, you're still in that environment. I said that in my head. I never stated my discontent with the issue. Eventually, we see each other again, kind of random. So, basically, he's getting his own apartment and all the time was kind of keeping me up to date with the renovating process and etc. He'd always tell me to come visit and whatever. I was skeptical. Again, Eastern European girly, a girl going to a guy's apartment, alone, is never good or well seen. I asked him who saw it. Surprise surprise, he cited some family members, some guy's friends, and lastly his girl best friend. Okay, no problem though. I was in his district and we were joking around, and eventually I went to see his apartment. I didn't stay for long, but it was a nice time, laughing a lot, joking around, etc. Again, I was so mesmerized by how put together he was in his integrity and calmness and everything else. I was starting to really like him, but I couldn't tell if it was reciprocated, plus his girlfriend always stuck in the back of my head. Pathetic, I know. Since then we haven't seen each other because I currently have exams and then I go on holidays. But we kept chatting and eventually started flirting a lot, to the point where I was convinced it had to be reciprocated. So, last night, we talk and IDK what he said, to which I replied aha. Truthfully, I say aha when I don't have anything else to say, but also when he would say something I didn't quite like, but I'd shut my mouth because I was in no place to comment on it. He tells me, I hate when you say aha, I feel like you're mad at me or don't like what I'm saying. I say mad, no. But yes, you are right, I do say it when you say something I don't like, however here it's just because I had no other reply. This man immediately jumps into it and he tells me no, but that one time I said that I accompany the girls back home and you had told me aha. So, just off of that, this man knows what's up, and he been knowing it bothers me, he just waited to see if it was going in that direction between us. I love that he's so aware. I tell him I can't get into this stuff, they were there before me. He tries to reassure me by saying it's just 3 of them, not 36,000, and I'm like, it doesn't change anything, and I give in and tell him everything that puts me uncomfortable about this situation based on what he's told me in the past. He goes on to say that the girl is his friend since when they were 12 and that they grew up together and that nothing is going to happen between them, however he understands completely why it would bother me. He told me that the fling with his cousin was just a dumb 1-week fling and it didn't mean much. He validates what I say because I told how I'm sure my boyfriend wouldn't be okay with me calling my guy friend to pick me up at 2 a.m. or involving him in my family to hang out with them and yada yada. He says yes, I know. He goes on to say that it's just an act of services bringing the girls home, and I ask him, when y'all go out in groups, why does it have to be you, and he tells me because I'm the guy. Again, I wanted to peel my skin off. I hated that reply. What do you mean you're the guy? He tries to reassure me by saying this girl had a BF for 4 years ND now she's pre-dating this guy. All I wanted to say was then tell her to call him WTF, but I doubled down. He tells me I know it's complicated, I'm putting myself on the other side and I wouldn't have liked it, I know. I feel like, at this point, because I feel like I'm pushing him in a corner to choose between me or her. But at the same time I feel like he's saying all this stuff like, yeah, I understand, but is anything even going to change? I don't have anything against friends of the opposite when you're in a relationship, as long as they're mutual or IDK you go out in group settings, but his friendship with this girl doesn't sit right with me and I could never envision something more with him knowing this girl is active in his life. He repeats himself by saying I know her since we're 12, she's my only friend and I see her like a friend and it's the same on her side, and I hated that I hate everything, I am a hater because I would have preferred he had multiple different girlfriends than just her. Why? Why just her? What does she have so special? Why is he so attached to her? I tell him having opposite friends is low-key okay. Best friends just doesn't sit right with me, and also, my thoughts process is if I'm with a guy he is my best friend and my boyfriend. Like, I don't need other male best friends or even male friends, I got my girlfriends, and I thought it was the same with guys. And again, in reply to my message he says, well, I only have her and I, yep, you guessed it, HAAAATD that. He goes on to say I would have hated that my GF had a boy best friends, I know, and he agrees with my statement that I see my boyfriend like my best friend and boyfriend, and that's pretty much it. Afterwards he was saying how he thought it was important to have this conversation and he wanted to clear things out. Meanwhile, things in my head couldn't be further from clear, if anything everything is worse. I told him how yeah I wanted to have the convo too, but I didn't feel entitled to open the subject. He tells me to never hesitate and tell him everything openly BC he wants to know, and I tell him how could I dare bring this up, I'm not entitled to open the topic, especially not back then when I had said that aha, it was before things got ambiguous between us. I didn't know if you like me back, I thought you just tell me stop, you and I are just friends. And he tells me you just ask the question, that's all. Followed by, stop it, well now you know I like you too, so don't hesitate to say anything. So, long story short, that conversation ended on kinda admitting feelings. But, to tell you, how engrossed I was by the entire discussion about his girlfriend, I couldn't even enjoy the fact that I know that it's mutual and that he likes me. Even now, I'm having a hard time rejoicing about it.